Hello, D1. Welcome to lesson 5 of your narrative writing lessons. You are going to need for our lesson today your writing book, your narrative writing book, as well as a pencil. That is all you're going to need to complete this lesson. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to jump back to where we left off yesterday. Yesterday's lesson, we went ahead and we looked at how we can take our writing and we answered the questions. You can see here, we answered the question who, where, when, and what. I filled it out on another packet, so that's why mine's blank, but yours should be completely filled out. It says who was there, where were you, when did it happen, and what happened. If you want to see Miss Walsh's filled out lesson 4 page, please go back to our Google Classroom stream. You will find the video link there, and you will see Miss Walsh fill this entire sheet out. Now we are moving on to lesson 5 of our writing unit, and we are going to be talking about word choice. Now you might be thinking, Miss Walsh, what do you mean by word choice? Well, exactly what it says, word choice. We're going to choose words very carefully to help bring our reading to, our writing rather, to life, to make it exciting, make it so our reader wants to continue reading our story. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to read this little section up at the top and you are going to follow along. To bring life to your narrative, it is important to use words that are both descriptive and precise. Descriptive meaning you're able to really kind of picture it in your mind, and precise means exact. It exactly tells you what you are trying to say. You want to avoid boring verbs such as went or saw, or adjectives such as pretty or nice. When describing your feelings, you want to avoid words such as happy and sad. You also want to avoid using the word said. Thinking about the context of your narrative, what words might you use to bring your narrative to life? So again, we want to not use boring verbs, boring adjectives, boring feeling words, and the most boring word, said. We do not want to use those words because they're overused. Meaning they are really common and a lot of people use them, and so it makes it kind of not as exciting, and again, it's not very precise, right? When you say, oh, she was nice, okay, like what do you mean she was nice? Did she have good manners? Is she caring? What do you mean by nice? And so to be a little bit more precise, instead of nice, you can say polite. So now I know when I hear polite, she has really great manners, and that's more precise. And so I can create a little bit better of an image in my mind. And so we're going to go ahead, I'm going to share with you some verbs, adjectives, feeling words, and other words and that can replace said that I will use for my story. Now, I want you to think before I show you my words that the words that I used match my story, because my story is about going on a roller coaster ride, right? So my words that I use for my descriptive verbs and my descriptive adjectives might not match your story. If your story is about maybe going camping or going on a nice hike, right? Our adjectives and our verbs might look very different, and that's okay. This is just to help you get your brain working and kind of prep you for making those word choices. And I'll also give some tips at the end for my friends who do not have a similar story to myself. So I'm going to go ahead. Descriptive verbs. Remember, verbs are action words. And so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share some of the action words I came up with. You are going to see that all of my action words end in past tense and in an ed, and that's because the story happened in the past, right? It already happened. So I make sure that my verbs are past tense, meaning they end in that ed. So I have shrieked, sped, darted, soaked, chased, followed, exited, arrived, gazed, enjoyed, imagined, and squeezed, right? And so these are some pretty crazy verbs, and they're way more exciting than I saw this, right? I gazed at the portrait, right? Instead of I saw the portrait, right? That is so boring. Saw so boring, but gazed is way more exciting. And so again, these verbs would work great if you were doing something really exciting like a roller coaster like Miss Walsh was, but it might not make sense to talk about darted or shrieked if you aren't doing the same that Miss Walsh was doing. So just keep that in mind. Next, we have descriptive adjectives, and you can see Miss Walsh came up with a lot of these. And adjectives are describing words, and so some of the describing words Miss Walsh came up with was tricky, friendly, cranky, odd, quiet, amusing, grand, sparkling. Oh, I put grand twice. Endless, rusty, splendid, swift, speedy, hardworking, fluttering, and whimsical. And so when I was coming up with my list of adjectives, I kind of closed my eyes and I thought about everything I saw while I was on that ride. And I thought about the things that were in the queue. Remember, queue is a fancy word to describe that beginning part of the ride when you're in line. And so I was thinking about the queue, I was thinking about the story that happens on the ride, and I was thinking about all of that when I was coming up with my adjective list. Then I have my final two sections, and so my first section I'm going to share with you is feeling words, right? I don't want to just see sad or happy, right? Those words are used way too much and it gets a little boring. So some feeling words I came up with are excited, certain, determined, content, grateful, exhilarated, impressed, stunned, anxious, and curious. And so again, I came up with a lot more interesting words. Like anxious, I could have easily said scared, but instead of scared, I chose to use anxious because it's a little bit more precise to how I was feeling at that time. And instead of saying happy, I said content, grateful, exhilarated. And so again, those are, and excited, those are more precise than just happy. And then finally, words to replace said. Like I said before, said is a boring word, right? We use it all the time. And so we want to replace the word said. It's okay if we say it here and there, but we really want to try and use different words. And so some words I came up with are screamed, exclaimed, cried out, asked, declared, blurted, insisted, yelled, whispered, cheered, replied, assured, wondered, and commanded. And again, these words are far more descriptive than just the word said, right? When I hear the word said, I hear someone talking in a normal voice. It's kind of monotone, right? But then when I hear whispered, I hear somebody who's talking like this. Or when I hear assured, I hear someone who's very confident and they know what they're talking about. Or when I hear the word wonder, I hear someone asking, I wonder, and it changes the tone of the story. And so I think it's really important that we try and come up with as many ideas as possible for said. And that being said, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to close that. And remember, if you ever had to pause to look at my words as well, because I gave you some ideas, go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead now and show you really quickly on my computer. So if you go ahead and you start searching up some ideas for, if you're like, those ideas, Miss Walsh, well, they were great, they didn't really apply to what I need because I am working on a different type of story, you can go ahead. I recommend going to Google. Oops, I gotta wait, there it is. I recommend going to Google or something similar and start looking up ideas. And so you can type in verbs list for 3rd grade. And then you will see a ton of different ideas pop up. And so you see this one right here, vibrant verbs list for 3rd grade. And if I go ahead and I scroll down, we ignore all those ads, we see a whole bunch of lists, right? Climb, mount, chomp. We see crush, shut, slam, lounge, snooze, calm, enjoy, hope, imagine, howl, scream, halt. We see soar, roll, want, wish, crave. So we have a ton of different verbs that we can choose from, and you can do the same for adjectives. See, we have an awesome adjectives list. If I go ahead and scroll down, I have even more ideas to choose from. And so this is a great resource for you to use if you need it. Just remember, though, that it needs to apply to your story. So if you like, oh, I like this adjective curly, well, does it match with my story? I know it doesn't match with my story, so I'm not going to use it. Well, I think it's a fun word. I'm not going to use it for my story because it just doesn't make sense. So think about before you add it to your list, will it make sense if I use it in my story? And that is going to be it, D1. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, D1.